Hello, my name is Michelle Hudson-Shore. I'm from the Fund for the Replacement of Animals in Medical Experiments. I'm talking to you today about database searches and resources for non-animal methods. First of all, I'll take you through the objectives of the presentation, why it's important to do an effective search for non-animal methods, why this can be difficult, and give you some ideas of how it can be done, as well as highlighting some available resources. So the learning outcomes from this presentation, I hope after listening to it, you will be able to have a greater awareness of the need to conduct effective searches, an awareness of the problems associated with searching, have acquired some basic search skills, and have an increased knowledge of the available resources. So why is it important to search for information on non-animal alternatives? Firstly, it's for good science, and this quote from the ECFAM Search Guide sums this up quite well. In science, good planning is essential to clearly define the specific and novel scientific objectives to be pursued, to select the most appropriate research tools, to design the programme of work, and to devise and optimise the experimental design, protocols, data acquisition and data analysis systems. All of this is conditional upon you being able to find relevant information, evaluate it, and build on your experience, analysis and insights to turn that information into knowledge and effective action. The second reason to conduct an effective search is to ensure that the science that you're doing is ethical, because the ability to access and implement information on the 3 R's, replacement, reduction and refinement, is essential for ethical and scientific reasons, because it can lead to improvements in animal welfare and scientific outcomes, as well as to the saving of resources. It can prevent the unnecessary duplication of studies, improve experimental design, and ensure that existing and new alternative methods are used as widely as possible. The third reason to conduct a search is that it is often a legal requirement in many countries. So, for example, in the US, in relation to animal experiments, the IACUC is required to determine that the proposed activities or significant changes in ongoing activities meet the following requirements: that the principal investigator has considered alternatives to procedures that may cause more than momentary or slight pain or distress to the animals, and has provided a written narrative description of the methods and sources, e.g. the Animal Welfare Information Centre, used to determine that alternatives were not available. In Canada, the Guide to the Care and Use of Experimental Animals requires that all animal users complete an animal use protocol form and ensure that the information therein includes the following points: information with regard to the 3 R's, replacement, reduction and refinement alternatives of animal use, to include a description of why sentient animals must be used for the project, of how the applicant arrived at this conclusion, for example, searches of databases on alternatives that were conducted, and of possible replacement alternatives, and justification if these are not to be employed. And in Europe, the European Directive on Animal Use in Science stipulates that Member States shall ensure that wherever possible, a scientifically satisfactory method or testing strategy not entailing the use of live animals shall be used instead of a procedure involving animals. The project evaluation shall consist in particular of the following: an assessment of the compliance of the project with the requirement of replacement, reduction and refinement. So why is searching for information on non-animal alternatives so difficult? You might think searching is easy, we have the internet and Google, right? Unfortunately, the vast majority of the web is not searched by search engines, only the surface web. This leaves the deep or invisible web unsearched and undiscovered. The deep web is many times larger than the surface web, and it's the part of the web that is not searched by standard search engines such as Google. And this is because the material may be encrypted, subject to registration or subscription, be password or capture protected, have dynamic or scripted web pages, be on intranets, or it could be that the text is in images or videos not formatted for or accessible to standard search engines, or it may form unlinked content. As well as problems with identifying all the available information on the internet, 3 R's literature is often difficult to find because databases are inefficient and they don't overlap. There's also limited knowledge of specialist 3 R's databases, with very few people knowing what they are and how to use them effectively. As well as this, scientists rarely use 3R's words in their titles, abstracts or keywords of their publications, and databases rarely tag 3R's papers with explicit thesaurus terms. And this is all compounded by the fact that there is no single journal of 3R's research and resources. Finding information on non-animal methods is difficult because specific details about 3R's aspects are often not reported. Reporting in materials and methods sections should be so detailed that the study can be reproduced in another lab, including explicit detail about 3R's aspects, but this information takes up valuable space which is often very limited in peer-reviewed journals. However, supplementary online space is now becoming more common, so hopefully this will make it easier to outline 3R specific methods, interventions and strategies, and I encourage you to give as much detail as possible in any of your future publications. Another reason why searching can be difficult is that negative results are very rarely published, and bias automatically occurs if only positive results are reported. Negative results can be just as important for the scientific community because they can indicate what methods are effective or not, they can prevent unnecessary duplication, they can indicate which avenues of research to pursue further or avoid, and they can suggest opportunities to collaborate. So we've gone through why it's important to search and why it can be difficult, and I want to run you through some of the basics of searching. First of all, you need to think about search efficiency. The choice of search terms and the way they are combined is very important, but other factors also affect the efficiency of a search. The effectiveness of a search can be measured in terms of recall and precision. These ratios vary between databases, between searches, and between search engines. The recall ratio is the relevant records retrieved over the total relevant records, i.e. how comprehensive the search is, and the precision ratio is the relevant records retrieved over the total records retrieved, i.e. how accurate the search is. Recall and precision are inversely related, so broadening the search, for example by including synonyms, will increase the recall but at the cost of decreasing precision, because the probability of retrieving irrelevant material increases. Narrowing the search by using specific terms or spellings will increase precision, but at the risk of not retrieving some potentially very relevant material. They will be affected by the capabilities of the search language that can be used. In the case of databases, they will also be affected by the indexing system, and for search engines by the algorithms used to assign relevancy. If the recall ratio is expressed as a percentage of all relevant documents that exist, rather than the total relevant records in the database being searched, it will also be affected by the coverage of the database. This will depend on which journals and other sources are monitored. Likewise, recall will be affected by the number of websites indexed by a search engine and the depth to which these sites are indexed. As a result, there may be great differences in the results obtained from different databases or search engines. It is important to bear this in mind. In order to search effectively, it is better to use more than one database or search engine. The second thing to think about is your choice of search terms. Searching for information on the 3Rs requires combining 3R search terms with search terms related to the scientific topic of interest. Important factors in creating a search include thinking about case specificity. Some search systems are case-specific for uppercase letters. In these instances, the use of capital letters where appropriate, for example for acronyms and proper names, may reduce the number of irrelevant documents retrieved. It's also important to think about spelling. Correct spelling of search terms is vital because search software identifies exact matches. To maximize the chance of finding relevant documents, it is sometimes necessary to use both British and American spellings. For example, in anesthesia, spelt A-N-A-E-S-T-H-E-S-I-A versus A-N-E-S-T-H-E-S-I-A. There are also synonyms. It's also useful to include synonyms and related words which could be used by authors. For example, the phrase liver cells might be used instead of the word hepatocytes. Although the phrase in vitro is commonly used in searches for replacement alternative methods, an exhaustive search may need additional use of terms such as cell culture, tissue culture, organ culture, subcellular fractions, etc. Certain options available in some search systems can simplify some of the above considerations. These include wildcards. Symbols such as the asterisk may be used in some search engines as a wildcard to signify one or more characters. This can be a very useful way of including different ways of spelling a word without having to input both versions. For example, spelling the word SUL*UR will retrieve both sulfur and sulfur spelt with an F and a PH, while truncation of the term sulf with PH asterisk will retrieve sulfuric, sulfurious, sulfate, sulfite, etc., but not sulfuric, sulfurous, sulfate, sulfite spelt with an F. It is not possible to combine a spelling wildcard with a truncation one. Another option is stemming. Some of the pitfalls associated with the use of truncation operators are avoided in search engines which use stemming. That is, those which automatically search for terms grammatically related to the search terms. This may be confined to combining the singular and plural forms of common words. In other cases, stemming also applies to the combination of different grammatical forms, such as experiment, experimentation, experimental, experimenter, and experimenting. Another important aspect to understand is the use of Boolean and other operators. The need to understand this use of operators may be questioned given that database hosts and search engines now tend to provide menu-driven search mode, as well as an advanced interface in which operators may be used. However, menu-driven search interfaces may be limited in the search possibilities they offer. Most online databases and internet search engines permit the use of search operators. These operators define the relationship between the search terms being used. They act as commands to the search engine to specify how the sets of identified documents should be combined. The results of Boolean-based searches can be represented using a Venn diagram. For example, AND is used to find documents which contain both of the search terms linked by the operator and to eliminate documents which contain only one or neither of the search terms. For example, to find documents on transgenic mice, you could use transgenic and mice, and the crosshatch area represents the documents that would be retrieved. The Boolean operator OR is used to find documents which contain either one or both of the search terms. For example, to find all documents referring to the kidney, the liver, or both organs, you would use kidney or liver. And as the diagram shows, you will retrieve all documents including those terms, including those that overlap. The Boolean operator NOT is used to exclude documents from a retrieved set. For example, to find documents on rodents which do not deal with rats, you would use rodents, not rats. And as this diagram indicates, the darker area are the documents that you would retrieve. However, the NOT operator should be used with care because it can eliminate pertinent information. In the above example, it would exclude all documents which mention rats in addition to other rodent species. However, it can be useful in reducing an unmanageable quantity of retrieved information, and also to increase the precision of a search term, for example, pigs not guinea. In some cases, NOT cannot be used alone and has to be combined with AND, for example, rodents and not rats. Near is not a Boolean operator, but can be used on some search systems to indicate a requirement for proximity, where it will retrieve documents in which the key terms are within a certain number of words from each other. This can narrow down a search when searching for a sequence of words, if the exact sequence is not known, or if no other means is available to indicate that the key word should be treated as a phrase. In some cases, the order in which the search terms are linked by the proximity operator will define the order in which they must appear in the document. A number of other operators are commonly permitted by search engines and can be used to refine searching carried out in the simple search mode. The most useful of these are the plus sign, which can be used to specify words which must be present in the retrieved document. For example, plus transgenic mice plus mice will only retrieve documents which contain both words, while plus transgenic mice will give a higher placing to documents containing both words, but will also retrieve documents containing the word transgenic but not the word mice. The minus sign can be used to exclude documents containing the search term. For example, plus transgenic minus plants minus mice will retrieve documents which contain the word transgenic but which do not contain the words plants or mice. Similar care should be used with this operator as with the Boolean operator not. Quotation marks can be used to enclose a series of words which are to be treated as a phrase. For example, Animals in Scientific Procedures Act, enclosed in quotation marks, will find only documents containing this specific phrase. Many search engines define a list of common stop words, such as and, the, and of, which are stripped out of search expressions. Enclosing these words in quotation marks will ensure that they are retained. Other operators may include ways in which to limit the search to words occurring within a URL, within an internet domain, within the title of the file, etc. These are not necessary for normal searching, but may sometimes be useful. The help pages of most search engines will list all the acceptable operators and how they may be used. In some databases and search engines, parentheses can be used together with Boolean operators to construct more complicated search profiles. The operators within a pair of brackets are treated as a single unit which is processed first. For example, to find documents which mention cell culture or tissue culture, you can use culture asterisk and bracket cell asterisk or tissue bracket. Note the use of truncation to cover the variants such as cultured, culturing, cultures and cells. If proximity operators are permitted, bracket cell asterisk or tissue bracket near culture asterisk might be preferable, but it may be necessary to invert the search expression as well if the proximity operator also defines the order in which the words must appear. For example, bracket culture asterisk near bracket cell asterisk or tissue bracket or bracket cell asterisk or tissue bracket near culture asterisk bracket will recover documents mentioning cell culture or tissue culture and also documents referring to cultured cells, etc. The above search filter uses nested parentheses which are permitted on many search systems. Another example is transgenic and bracket mice or rats or bracket pigs not guinea bracket which will retrieve documents on transgenic mice, transgenic rats and transgenic pigs, but not transgenic guinea pigs. So now that we've gone through the basics of searching, now I want to turn attention to actually conducting a search. This section focuses on performing a literature search on a bibliographical database. However, some of the general principles and the list of search terms relating to the 3 R's could be applicable to searches carried out on internet search engines. It includes information on planning a search, designing a search strategy, defining search terms including examples of subject-specific terms, and how to report your search. So when planning a search, it is essential that a literature search is an integral first step in the planning of any research program. Scientists should critically review previous literature to check if their proposed research is novel, to determine how previous similar studies were conducted, find the severity of the procedure, and identify all feasible methods of testing the hypothesis in the planned program. The Frame Strategic Planning poster provides a good introduction on how to plan an experimental program. In recent years, systematic reviews of animal-related research have been advocated as a robust method of conducting such literature searches. A systematic review is a literature review focused on a single question, which tries to identify, appraise, select, and synthesize all available high-quality research evidence relevant to that question. Whether you adopt a systematic or more traditional literature review, many of the principles are the same and should result in direct implementation of the 3 R's. A robust literature search can reveal gaps in knowledge and identify which models will give the best answer to the research question, including if an animal is absolutely necessary, replacement. It can highlight new techniques that might be less invasive or have more humane endpoints, refinement, and help to identify effective experimental designs and prevent unnecessary duplication of animal experiments, reduction. Linares et al. 2012 provide a useful overview of the 5 basic steps that need to be addressed when planning a comprehensive search. These are to formulate a focused research question, identify appropriate databases and sources of studies, transform the research question into a search strategy, collect search results and remove duplicates, and identify potentially relevant papers. There's a great deal more detail in that paper, which I've provided the reference for at the end of the presentation. When you have formulated your research question and identified appropriate databases, then you need to design a search strategy that would enable you to address your research question. Designing a search strategy for a specific database can be complex and depends upon specific search terms, the search capabilities of the database, and the indexing system it uses. It may be necessary to take a specific course in the use of the major electronic bibliographical databases. This may be available at an institution's library or may need to involve a specialist from the library for advice when developing a comprehensive search strategy. Again, Linares et al. Give a good example of transforming a research question into a search strategy for the database PubMed, which provides a good introduction for this particular database. So when designing a search strategy and defining search terms, the following are general considerations. For more details, look on the Frame Searching for Information resource, which is referenced at the end of the presentation. Initially, it is necessary to define search terms specific to the field of study and the research topic. The terms then need to be combined into a search filter using Boolean or other operators. The use of parentheses and operators make it possible to construct very long and complicated search filters, which include the whole of the desired search. However, on systems which permit the storage and subsequent recall of individual search sets, it is better to do the search in a number of steps, each dealing with one concept, and then to combine the retrieved sets in various ways. If the first search retrieves too many documents, of which many are irrelevant, it will be necessary to make the search filter more precise. Do this by using narrower terms, for example searching on rats instead of rodents. Another trick is to limit the search on the most important terms to the title field, if that is permitted. On the other hand, the first attempt may retrieve very few documents. In this case, some of the very specific parts of the search profile should be removed and/or broader search terms should be used. It may also be possible to explode a search. This is possible on databases such as Embase and Medline, which use a hierarchical indexing system. Having performed the subject-specific search, most scientists will want to obtain full copies of documents that appear relevant and go through these to see if the hypothesis is valid and if the proposed study is justified. This is a good opportunity to make notes of anything that might be relevant to the 3 Rs. If any of the papers are found to be irrelevant, then you must note down the criteria used to exclude them and how many papers were excluded under each criteria. Either as part of or after the first analysis has been completed, a second search should be done to investigate further possibilities for replacement, reduction and refinement. As noted above, at all stages, retrieval of relevant documents will be influenced by the indexing systems of the different databases and the extent to which the search is tailored towards those systems. So when putting together your search strategy, you need to think about subject-specific terms. The best way in which to generate a list of subject-specific terms is to identify a set of core papers about the subject. A good place to start is by looking through some review journals. Once 1 or 2 pertinent reviews have been found, these can be used to identify important papers and important authors in the field. This may result in some older references being listed. It can be useful to follow these forwards in time by using the Web of Knowledge Citation Index to identify articles which have cited these key papers and key authors. Relevant words can be extracted from the full text of the core papers, including any keywords supplied by the authors. The types of search terms that need to be considered relate to the following categories: the field of interest, for example cardiology, pharmacology or neurology, the species used in the reported studies, the systems or anatomical structures that are studied, any pathological or physiological processes that might be involved, any hormones, enzymes or chemicals of interest or relevance to the study, and any 3 Rs terms. In the context of 3 Rs terms, there is a comprehensive list of words that you could use, which is available on the Frame Searching for Information resource. Here I just give a few examples related to replacement. So if you were looking at generally general alternatives, then you could use the term alternatives or animal testing, alternatives or non-animal, combined with assay, method, model, replace, replacement, surrogate, system, technique, biomarker. If you were, say, looking specifically for computer-based replacements, you could use computer or in silico combined with aided, assisted, etc. When thinking about subject-specific terms, it is important to try to include synonyms. For example, heart can be used in place of cardiac. Include any commonly used acronyms, for example, GPT, NSAID. It is important to think of possible variants in spelling, such as in the British and US spellings of tumour. It would be useful at this stage to go into one or two databases and retrieve the full records for some of these core papers. This can easily be done by searching on appropriate words from the title and author names in the title and author fields, and/or by searching by date in the year field. The full records will show the words which have been used to index the articles for the databases. They may help to identify some more keywords. If many of the core papers cannot be retrieved from a database, this will serve as an alert that this database is not going to be very useful for the planned search. The indexing thesaurus should ideally be consulted in order to obtain the preferred terms or indexing codes and also narrower and/or broader terms or codes for these concepts. Once you have conducted a search, it is important to record it. To demonstrate the systematic and robust nature of your search, it is important to report or publish your search strategy whenever possible. This might be as a supplement to your scientific paper. This will facilitate dissemination of 3R's information and aid other researchers to search effectively. Linars et al. Provide a good example of a diagrammatic way of presenting the main search results, including exclusion criteria. You should also try to include your search filter. As a general rule, when reporting the search, you should include all the databases and other sources searched, the dates of the last search for each database and the period searched, the full search strategies, including all search terms and filters, any language or publication status restrictions used, and any exclusion criteria. Whether publishing the search strategy or not, it is important to save this information for your own future use. So now that we've gone through conducting a search, I now want to focus on the resources that are available to help you do that. Earlier in the presentation, I talked about how it is difficult to access the invisible web. However, there are specialised resources with the aim of enabling easier access to the invisible or deep web. Search engines that index non-HTML files do this to some extent, as do meta-sites by drawing attention to the existence of databases and other non-HTML based resources. Some of the resources that are out there include the following. About.com provides a useful introduction to searching the invisible web, and some of the specialised resources are Yippee.com, which combines results from a variety of different sources, filtering out duplicates and sifting the best content that you might not have seen otherwise to the top of the search results. InfoMine provides lists of scholarly internet resources relevant to students, teachers and researchers at the university level. It includes resources such as databases, electronic journals, electronic books, bulletin boards, mailing lists, online library catalogues, articles, directories of researchers and other types of information. LibrarySpot is a collection of databases, online libraries, references and other good information from the invisible web. Omni-Medical Search is a medical search engine. It is divided into 4 main sections: search options, reference desk, conditions and disease, and local directory. The first 2 of these are perhaps the most useful in the context of this. The search options include the web, news, images, forums and MedPro, which is for those who want to go a little deeper in their research and search as professional peer-level resources such as PubMed and Ovid. The reference desk allows users to search acronyms, medical associations, databases, dictionary health and medical forum directory, medical journals and a medical image library. Surfwax allows users to find search results from multiple search engines at the same time. And Virtual Library is the oldest catalogue of the web, started by Tim Berners-Lee, the creator of HTML and the web itself, in 1991 at CERN in Geneva. Unlike commercial catalogues, it is run by a loose confederation of volunteers who compile pages of key links for particular areas in which they are expert. Even though it isn't the biggest index of the web, the VL pages are widely recognised as being among the highest quality guides to particular sections of the web. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that it's often difficult to know which databases are available for searching for non-animal methods. So here I'm going to run over some of the free searchable databases that are available. The first of which is AltBib. The National Library of Medicine AltBib portal provides access to PubMed citations relevant to alternatives to the use of live vertebrates in biomedical research and testing. Many citations provide access to free full text. The second is Agricola. Agricola is produced by the National Agricultural Library of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is a bibliographical database on agricultural science, laboratory animal science, and animal welfare alternatives, with some topics not covered by PubMed. It consists of two databases which can be searched separately or together. The NAL Online Public Access Catalogue contains citations to books, audiovisuals, serials and other materials, most of which are in the library's collection. The catalogue does contain some records for items not held at NAL. The Article Citation Database includes citations, many with abstracts to journal articles, book chapters, reports and reprints, selected primarily from the materials found in the NAL catalogue. Searches can be done in several modes with detailed information on each of these available in the right-hand menu or in the Help section. Other databases include the American Type Culture Collection, whose searchable collections include a wide range of biological materials for research, including cell lines, molecular genomic tools, microorganisms, and bioproducts. There's also CRIS, the Current Research Information System database, provides information on research projects supported by the United States Department of Agriculture. You can conduct an assisted search which uses a fill-in form. A number of help screens, automatic wildcarding and built-in search logic are provided. You can also perform a professional search which uses a sophisticated interface intended for experienced users familiar with CRIS search fields, Boolean operators and advanced search techniques. The URL ECVAM-DBALM service includes a unique collection of datasets providing factual information presented as evaluated data sheets. Its rationale is to provide an overall picture on the state-of-the-art of alternative methods in use at all stages of development, validation, or regulatory acceptance for a given topic area in the form of method summary, descriptions, and/or more detailed information to allow the transfer and use of a method by a laboratory. This does require you to register a username and password to use the search facility, but this is free of charge. There's also the HSVMA Alternative in Education database. The Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association contains thousands of entries of alternatives to the harming or killing of animals for many levels of education. There's the more well-known PubMed, which is the major biomedical bibliographical database, which is produced by the US National Library of Medicine. It comprises of more than 22 million citations for biomedical literature from Medline, life science journals, and online books. Citations may include links to full-text content from PubMed Central and publisher websites. ToxNet is a collection of factual and bibliographical databases on toxicology and hazardous chemicals, environmental health, and toxic releases. Searches can be performed on one database at a time by selecting from the right-hand menu or on all databases from the home page. The US Genome Bioinformatics site is a collection of genomes and gene analysis tools, including a chromosome by chromosome global search listing, gene expression data gene mapping tools, and tools to assist with the design of molecular biology techniques. While databases are very useful, it is often difficult to retrieve information about the 3Rs from traditional bibliographical databases. This is because the abstract and title of a paper is unlikely to contain any detailed reference to the procedures used unless the development or modification of a procedure is the subject of the article. Indeed, even the full text of a paper may not describe the methods used in sufficient detail to enable such an identification to be made. One way to find out this sort of information is to make informal inquiries of other scientists and technicians. The following methods provide an opportunity for this sort of communication. Firstly, mailing lists, which are made up of a group of people who send messages to a computer known as a list server. The list server distributes each message to every person on the list by email. List members reply to messages received or post messages about new topics. Each group of messages with the same subject line is called a thread. Mailing lists were more popular in the 1990s and early 2000s, but usage has declined in favour of discussion/web forums, which I'll talk about in a moment. However, some lists are still active and very useful, such as those available on the AALAS website. It is always necessary to subscribe to a mailing list. Some mailing lists are open to anyone who wants to join, while others require approval from the list owner. Discussion or web forums serve the same function as mailing lists, but the messages appear on a website and are not sent out to individual members or readers. Access to the site may be either open or require a username and password. The messages are displayed in threads according to subject. Responses and new messages are posted from the website. Usually, only the newest messages are displayed. The owner of the website may maintain an archive of older messages which can be consulted. Some examples of web forums are the Science Forum and the Frame Forum Perspectives in Laboratory Animal Science. As online social media has become increasingly popular, it offers users the opportunity to follow groups, get breaking news, and interact with others instantly. For example, LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network with 200 million members in 200 countries and territories around the globe. It enables members to search, browse, and join groups that are of interest to them. It also suggests groups that you might be interested in. Access to some groups requires approval by the group manager. Once you have joined a group, you can opt to receive alerts about discussions, events, etc., and you can post comments to the group. In Facebook, the social networking service, once a member, you can search for groups or pages that are of interest to you, and if you join or like the pages, you can opt to receive notifications from them and can post on them. With Twitter, which is a real-time information network that connects you to the latest stories, ideas, opinions, and news about what you find interesting. Simply find the accounts you find most compelling and follow the conversations. Twitter operates via small bursts of information called tweets. Each tweet is 140 characters long. You can see photos, videos, and conversations directly in tweets to get the whole story at a glance and all in one place. You can just follow other people or organizations without tweeting yourself, or you can interact. There are several tools and guidelines available to help you conduct an effective search. The references for these can be found at the end of the presentation. A lot of this presentation is based on information found in the online Frame Searching for Information resource. In addition to this, the Good Search Practice on Animal Alternatives Guide produced by ECFAM is available to order as a hard copy for free from the European Commission website or can be downloaded. The Circle Group, based in the Netherlands, provide various training events on systematic review and have numerous publications that will help with putting together a strategic search plan. There are also several useful websites that you can look at when looking for information on non-animal methods. There's ATLA, the Alternatives to Laboratory Animals journal, which is produced by Frame. There's the Frame website. There's the UK National Centres for the 3Rs. There's the Institute for In Vitro Sciences website and the ECOPA website, which is the European Consensus Platform on Alternatives. There is also the ALT website, which is managed by Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. During the presentation, you may have noticed that some of my slides were adapted from information produced by Norecopa. Norecopa is the Norwegian 3Rs Centre, and it maintains a large website containing 4 databases, a large number of web pages, and an intelligent search engine. It also generates unique URLs so a search can be documented and repeated. So, in summary, to find resources for non-animal methods, you need to define the search as well as possible, identify synonyms and 3R's terms, remember the difference between British and American English, use several databases with some overlap, learn the differences between the search engines, so read the instructions, get used to using Boolean logic and check which terms are supported by the search engines. Learn how to expand or narrow your search and look for core articles and key authors. Then use the possibilities on the internet to get in touch with the best research labs and organisations. Finally, here are the references for the materials cited in this presentation. The ECFAM Search Guide, Frame Searching for Information resource, the Animal Welfare Act and Regulations, NORACOPA, the Canadian Council on Animal Care Guide to the Care and Use of Experimental Animals, the European Directive, Linars et al. And Circle. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at michelle@frame.org.uk. Thank you for listening.